Hey fellow babies, welcome back to Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. I am hopeful that you are a Patreon patron. I am hopeful that you are a YouTube subscriber, and I am hopeful that you are neither lazy nor stupid, and you remembered to link your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch Prime account, because you can stick it to Amazon. They're paying Shane for that. It costs you nothing. It is free. What's free in life? Oh, watching me a week late on YouTube is free. But if you want it early, then wow, 2 clicks.
This episode of Pachter Factor is brought to you by DeShazer Ryan Realty. Right now, Doug DeShazer has beautiful lots available adjacent to Koocanusa Lake in northwest Montana. Pull up your RV and access the hookups, or build your own construction. Either way, you have access to world-class fishing, hunting, boating, swimming, biking, hiking, and the internet. No matter where you're looking to buy, make Doug DeShazer your real estate consultant at 406-291-1643. That's Doug DeShazer at 406-291-1643.
Our question today from Sifted from Commander Fett, first name Boba. With the recent layoffs and budget cuts, do you see publishers pushing developers to create smaller, shorter games going forward? It worked for the PS2 era. How do you think it would impact the market today? Is it smarter to join the chase for the golden goose of live service games? It reminds me of the misguided push to MMOs in the late aughts. When I first covered games in the early aughts, I remember that EA made, I want to get the right number, 49 games in 2001 or 2. And they had a plan to grow by making 70 games. And what they found, this is back when games cost, $5 million to develop or something. So they went up by 40% and their revenues didn't grow. They just made more games, more expense, and they just spread their sales among more games. And then they went exactly the opposite for the next 15 years. And now I don't even know how many games they make. 8. It's not very many. The analogy is the movie industry. There used to be the major motion picture studios, 7 of them in the US, made 200 films a year. And that was 2000. By 2015, that had dropped to 130, and now it's about 100. And what happened is that they recognized that 100 movies just didn't work no matter what. They made 200, and 100 of them just bombed. So they didn't cut out the 100 that bombed. They cut out 60 of them or 70 of them. They still make bombs, but they just made bigger bets on the stuff they knew would work, which meant sequel. And that's what we have in the games industry. So we have sequelitis in the games industry. It's easier to make Call of Duty than to come up with a new shooter, period. And it's why EA, it canceled the Star Wars shooter, because they can make Battlefield. They don't need to make another shooter. So the answer is no. We will never go back to smaller games. And I totally understand your thinking, because I don't think that it's irrational or illogical. You could make more money by making smaller bets, but these guys aren't trying to make a little bit of money. They're trying to hit a home run. If you ever talk to Ubisoft, what Ubisoft will tell you is the difference between Ubisoft and the old Activision and EA and Take-Two is that Ubisoft doesn't have a 25 million unit seller like Call of Duty or FIFA, EA Football Club, or Grand Theft Auto. And that's what they want to be. They don't have one. And they're not going to come up with one, but they don't have one. And by the way, how many does Take-Two have? 1. How many does Activision have? 1. How many does EA have? 1. Oh, but we don't have one. Yeah, if it was that easy, those other guys would have 2. So the point is, everybody wants to make 10 million unit sellers. And it used to be a good game sold 3 million units, a great game 5. I know you guys don't know this, but the first 3 Call of Duty games sold fewer than 6 million units. And Call of Duty 4, which was called Modern Warfare, cracked 10, and nobody could believe it. But it sold like 18. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 was the reason Vince Zampella got fired, because it sold literally 20 million units. And Vince's contract said that he and Jason and their team got profit sharing above a certain threshold, and that number turned out to be $128 million bonus on Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Because when they wrote the contract, and my buddy Harold Brown, who lives a few blocks that way, wrote it for them. When they wrote the contract, and I'm just making up numbers, they assumed it would sell 10 million, and they thought they'd get X percentage of the extra million or two that it might beat that by, but it beat it by like 10 million units. So there was 128 million to go around. And Activision decided to fire them and not pay it because they were looking around for maybe going to work for EA. And so Activision fired them, didn't pay them. The two guys sued Activision. Activision filed a countersuit against EA. Activision settled for the full amount, paid the entire 128 million. Point is that there's money in getting a giant hit, a lot of money. And now the over-under, a game that does less than 5 million is a piece of crap. So if you remember Tomb Raider a few years ago, the Square Enix guys, Eidos, they said how disappointing it was because it only sold 7 million. Remember that? And it was like a highly rated game, and 7 million is a lot for that game. But somebody at Square Enix decided that, oh my God, no, it's got to sell 15 million or it sucks. So back in the day, single-player campaigns were usually a minimum of 10 hours, a maximum of 30, right? And any game that was less than 10, people got pissed about. So I remember one of the Call of Duties, it wasn't Modern Warfare, was like 6-hour campaign, and people were pissed. Like, I spent $50 or $60 for this game, and I only got 6 hours. I get that. And then you got the Grand Theft Auto open world phenomenon. Open world games made that time longer than 30, and everybody's now trying to one-up the next guy and make them longer and longer and longer. And sure, could you go to smaller, shorter games? Sure. I don't know how much less expensive they would be to develop, because I'm not sure how much the extra several hours of gameplay takes to develop. Probably a year. I don't think you would cut it down in half. So you wouldn't go from a 4-year cycle to 2. So you might go from 4 to 3. You might cut 25% off the cost of the game. But shorter games are going to be rejected by consumers because they're spoiled. They expect more now. And I don't blame them. I mean, honestly, the push to live services is to try to make the game short, but the ongoing engagement lasts forever. And is there a difference from a consumer point of view if you play a game for 100 hours because you love it, or if you play a game for 100 hours because there's more stuff to do and it just never stops coming? I don't think so. I think 100 hours is 100 hours, and you feel like you got tremendous value from the game. So it's interesting because Call of Duty, which kind of pioneered the live service thing, I think it was an accident. I mean, I think that they came up with multiplayer, and what they saw was that people were slowing multiplayer. So let's say the first, the game lasted a year, right? You'd buy the game, you'd play the single player campaign or not. You play multiplayer, and then it just kind of kept declining heading into the next game launch. And so they decided to try to slow that decline by putting in map packs and selling you more stuff. And the map packs would see a spike in activity, and so it kind of flattened out. Then they changed that to live services, right? So that it kept it pretty constant, and then they got the next version that kept it pretty constant. But they made more money from live services, and the FIFA Ultimate Team same. So they figured that out. But I think it was a happy accident. And now everybody's trying to replicate that success, and it's just not easy to do. So I think, yes, like the MMO craze, the live service craze will go away. I don't think live services will go away. I just think everybody's going to acknowledge there's 1 or 2 games that each publisher can make, because Activision doesn't have 20 of them either. It's hard to do. And you've seen Take-Two try this with Red Dead Redemption Online and NBA Online and WWE Online. And to be fair, they never talk about anything but GTA Online. Not that Red Dead Online's bad, but it's just not as successful, and WWE and NBA are not at all, because it's hard to do. So Sony throwing themselves whole hog into it, that's going to change, and people are going to give up on that. Is smaller, shorter games a good idea? I don't think so. I think that segmenting the game experience into a theatrical beginning, middle, end type game, like a movie theater movie, where single player game is that's a smart approach to making games. Packing the game with more stuff so the completionist, the Baldur's Gate guy who wants to do everything and everything makes sense and there's a reason to do everything is brilliant, because you generate loyalty. And I've been playing Zelda since June, so the replayability of Zelda is easily a 200-hour game if you want to do everything, like easy. Is that good value for your $60? Yes. I don't think smaller, shorter games is smart. And by the way, I think you could do live services the same way we used to do map expansions in Call of Duty. You could just drop new maps. Like, you don't actually need to charge anybody anything. This ties into that question about the Japanese culture. Like, the Japanese game maker wants me to be engaged with their game and love their product, and I'm like, Nintendo for sure. Like, Nintendo really wants me to just love the hell out of everything about Switch and Nintendo, and I do. So they really do want me to play 200 hours. Yes, it's bad for the industry. I told you I hadn't started Baldur's Gate yet because I was still playing Zelda. Yeah, I think if you make smaller, shorter games and save money, you're going to diminish the customer experience. And if you diminish the customer experience, I think you run the risk of alienating the customer. They make the assessment of what customers want, and their assessment is customers want more. If their assessment ever becomes customers want less, then you will get less. Does it make sense? It makes sense if a company determines that's what their consumer wants. I have no idea what they're all going to do. I will say the trend is longer, not shorter. And that trend's going to continue until it doesn't. Thank you for joining us on SIFTD.net as a Patreon patron, as a YouTube subscriber, or as an intelligent and industrious Amazon Prime member who remembered to link his account to his Twitch Prime account, or her. And those of you who are intelligent and industrious who remembered to do the linkage, thank you very much. Those of you who are lazy and stupid and haven't remembered, you have a chance to redeem yourself and stick it to Amazon by linking your account. So please do so. I will see you fellow babies next time.